Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be talking about how there is historically low faith in United States institutions, and this is continuing a declining of faith in institutions. And this should not be a surprise to anyone who watches this channel or who is a cognizant human being whatsoever, because the United States is clearly in terminal decline right now. And it doesn't matter what institution you're looking at, all of the major institutions are declining in terms of quality, in terms of our trust in them, in terms of our feelings of whether they're legitimate or not. But let's look at what this study has to say. And so there are three highlights it starts off with. No institution's confidence score improved significantly in the past year. Confidence in 4 institutions now at record lows. Okay, so record lows. That means the lowest in history. Okay. There has never been a worse time for these institutions in America. And there is the widest party gap seen for the presidency and public schools. Okay, so that is telling us that in terms of the legitimacy of the nation state is at risk here, because people's faith in the president is dependent on your party affiliation, and even public schools. So our education system, our faith in it is dependent on our party affiliations. And it's no wonder, because the education system is a complete indoctrination mill. The training of educators, the training of teachers in higher education is straight up propaganda. It's horrific. I was a teaching assistant for a large educational class, educational psychology type of class, and I was in a department that was also affiliated with the School of Education at one institution, and they are absolutely indoctrinated to the worst propaganda ever. And I want to say this, it quite frankly doesn't help that the people who go into education typically aren't the smartest people in general anyways, and so they're very easily indoctrinated into these beliefs of the education professors. So to start off with, Americans' faith in major societal institutions hasn't improved over the past year following a slump in public confidence in 2022. Last year, Gallup recorded significant declines in public confidence in 11 of these 16 institutions. It tracks annually, with the presidency and Supreme Court suffering the most. Share of Americans expressing a great deal or fair amount of confidence in these fell 15 and 11 percentage points respectively. Okay, so the presidency has been very contentious the last couple of elections, really, and the Supreme Court, I'm assuming that has something to do with abortion. So again, more party conflict. Neither score recovered appreciably in the last poll, with the confidence in the court now at 27%, the presidency at 26%. Okay, so I think the legislative branch is somewhere around like single-digit percentage points right now. We'll have to see if it goes over that in this article, but think about that. The 3 branches of government are executive, legislative, and judicial. People don't like that. The vast majority of people in America don't trust those institutions. You don't have a country at that point. And that's the weird thing, is it feels like it's inertia that the United States continues on, because all available evidence says that these people don't have enough in common that they form a cohesive nation state. So let's go on. So Supreme Court at 27%, presidency at 26%. Okay, it was conducted before Supreme Court issued decisions affecting affirmative action, education, college loan forgiveness, and LGBTQ plus Americans' access to creative services. Any or all of these decisions could have altered the image as well as that of President Joe Biden. Okay. Public confidence in each of the other 14 institutions remains near last year's relatively low level, with none of the scores worsening or improving meaningfully. Overall, the new poll finds small business enjoying the most public trust, with 65% of Americans having a great deal or fair amount of confidence in it. Small business doesn't really mean much, so having confidence in it doesn't really mean much either. When you're talking small business, you're just thinking about your local businesses that you affiliate with. And so saying you have confidence in that really means minimal. I maybe for the sake of just surveying everything, that's why they survey it, but it really doesn't mean anything overall. Like, it's very different to have confidence in the president versus small businesses. Like, that's very noticeable. Like, what does small business mean? It means something different to every single person. Whereas if you say something like big business, you're thinking like a Walmart or an Amazon, and people have a shared perception. That's kind of the term I'm looking for here. They have a shared perception of what the president is. They have a shared perception of what big business is. They have a shared perception of what education is. They don't have a shared perception of what small business is. And so I think it's a pretty meaningless question and a pretty meaningless result. Okay, so going on, a majority, 60%, also have high confidence in the military. Oh, I would like to see that taken again, because I don't know anyone. I mean, I was in America for how many years of my life? 30, I don't remember how old I am. I think it's 31 years of my life. Oh, wow, I don't actually know how old I am. I think I'm 31 or 32. Oh, no. A majority, 60%, also have high confidence in the military. I think that's going down if you survey people again. When was this survey again? This was June 1st through 22nd. Okay, so I think that's been going down quite significantly. They're not able to meet their recruiting numbers right now, and I think people are trusting them a lot less. So it goes on to say, while less than half, 43%, feel this way about the next highest rated institution, the police. Okay, so I think the military is going to go the way of the police very soon. So you can kind of consider it a lagging indicator, right? So next up, the medical system and the church or organized religion round out the top 5 annually rated institutions, albeit with meager 34 and 32% confidence ratings respectively. Okay, so a couple of things to say. No, many things to say here. Let's start with the church, religious organizations, which is that they have a lot of explaining to do, because they really gave up their authority and their legitimacy. So every type of organization, this is how I think, every type of organization serves to amplify the opinion of its members. Okay? And so you could have really good organized religion or really bad organized religion. It's made up of and dependent on the people who are steering the organized religion. And it's an amplification of the human tendencies. And so in a lot of ways, it feels like the church has failed. One, it's failed just in its corruption. So just many scandals occurring within organized religion in the Western world. And two, it's failed because it didn't really fight back against a lot of the corruption that's taken place throughout all the different types of institutions, throughout culture, really. It really gave up a lot of its legitimacy, and it wasn't able to make a case for why it should exist. And I think a lot of that was the disarmament that occurred due to individualistic beliefs, where the church said, okay, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to wipe our hands of everything. We're not going to push any of our beliefs onto others. We're not going to try to influence them. We're not going to try to persuade them. And because we believe in individualism, we're just going to let our members do what they want to do. And so it became a very permissive atmosphere where organized religion in America was completely defanged, where they weren't able to promote any of their beliefs. I mean, if you're not willing to try to engage with others and try to persuade them, which Christianity is a conversion-based religion, that's what you're supposed to be doing. If you don't believe in trying to convert them, if you don't believe in trying to persuade people of your beliefs, then you don't really believe it. You don't believe it's fundamental. You don't believe, like Christians are supposed to believe that if you don't believe our beliefs, then you're not going to do well in the afterlife, let's put it that way. And so for them to give up on persuading people on aspects of culture that deal with Christian faith and Christian morals, that tells you that they really did give up in general. And you see this with, let's just take abortion for a second. They really gave up as organized religions in terms of fighting against abortion as organized religions. They did not use any of their collective power. Being a part of an organization amplifies your power because you're working as a cohesive whole with other people. And part of that, again, was the defanging that occurred, the declawing that occurred because of people's belief in individualism. And part of that was just, I think, incompetence. This is something I talk about a lot, which is that people who trust and cooperate with each other can take on significantly larger groups that do not trust and cooperate with each other. And nearly every group, aside from the Zionists, do not trust and cooperate with each other in America anymore. Even if you share similar beliefs, everyone is kind of a lone wolf. They try to go at it alone. At most, they consider their immediate family and go at it as a immediate family. But Zionists, who own media and entertainment and own the banking cartels and own government and own everything in America, essentially, they go at things as a cohesive group. And you know this too. If you've ever watched the 300 Spartans movie, I think that was the title of it. I can't even remember at this point. I just remember the 300 Spartans. But they were working as a cohesive group and were able to take on a much larger military force because of that. And individualism got rid of that. It got rid of that notion of trusting and cooperation with other people. And so any people that actually do trust and cooperate with each other are going to have amplified power because no one else is doing that. And so they're able to take on much larger groups. And so, I don't remember how I got off on that tangent, but the point is, organized religion is declawed. It doesn't amplify its power using its cohesiveness. It doesn't try to convince and persuade other people anymore. So it's just embarrassing. The medical system, I'm not going to get into too much detail about that, but man, the medical system in America, it's horrendous. If you are a billionaire, you get the greatest healthcare in the world. If you're not a billionaire, you suffer if anything goes wrong. And I argue with my libertarian friends about this a lot. And the thing is, this is why I disagree with Stefan Molyneux to a large extent, which is even in his book where he had this scenario where people were all just kind of like anarcho-capitalist, libertarian types or whatever. If a parent is neglecting or abusing their child, other people would intervene to stop that. However, for some reason, in Stefan Molyneux's view of the world, you don't actually have to work to give children and people in general health care and education. So it's like you're willing to intervene if someone else is neglecting a child, but then once a child is not being neglected by their parent, you just kind of abandon them, which doesn't make sense to me. So just as an example, let's say in Stefan Molyneux's example, a parent is withholding food from their child and the child is starving. In that case, the other people within the society would intervene to stop that. But in a Stefan Molyneux world, there is no requirement that you actually go and feed that child and make sure that they have their healthy child. In my iteration of the world, which does have a slight degree of socialism in it, you have to make sure that people have an even playing field to start out with, which means things like health, so healthcare, and being able to feed yourself is it's basic rights that you should have access to, and things like education, so you can better yourself and contribute to your society. Those are things that should be free, and I know libertarians and anarcho-capitalists do not like that term, but it is free in the sense that everyone has access to it, and everyone is absolutely obligated, required to buy into that system. Now, there's some other things about fertility rates amongst people who aren't willing to take care of their children that we could talk about further in other videos. But for the sake of this, things like education, healthcare should absolutely be free in the sense that it's a requirement that everyone contributes so that everyone has access to it. And in the American system, that's just quite frankly not the case. People go bankrupt all the time because they're not able to pay their healthcare bills. The healthcare system is atrocious. I've had instances where I needed to use the healthcare system and it just was not working for me, even when I had good healthcare coverage because I was a professor. It was just horrendous, really horrendous. Anyways, going on. So we talked about organized religion, the medical system, another 6 institutions: the U.S. Supreme Court, banks, public schools, the presidency, large technology companies, and organized labor earn between 25 and 27% confidence. Okay. How much do I want to go into this? We already talked about the Supreme Court. I already talked about public schools. We talked about the presidency. I'm not going to talk too much about large tech companies. We could have another video on how behavioral data is kind of the oil of the 21st century. We'll talk about that some other time. I'm not going to talk about organized labor. Banks are, the only thing I'm going to say about that is banks are Zionist controlled. They control the money supply. They're a cohesive group. They're able to do that because no one else is a cohesive group within Western civilization. Okay, so next, the 5 worst rated institutions: newspaper, the criminal justice system, television, news, big business, and Congress stir confidence in less than 20% of Americans, with Congress at 8%. The only one in single digits. Okay, so I thought it was in single digits. So I have, what right? Okay, if you're watching this and you dislike Russia or you dislike China, what right do you have to criticize them when our legislative branch in America is doing this poorly? Because it's very clear that people do not have a successful system in America. And so if they don't have a successful system, then why are you criticizing other people? What's there to criticize? I mean, it seems clear that you don't know what you're talking about. This is something that I've gotten frustrated about in the past, which is that you see people who like have a gambling addiction giving you advice about gambling, and like they're heavily in debt for gambling. And it's like, if you knew the right answer, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. And so Americans, my fellow Americans, do not criticize Russia and China and other countries around the world while your Congress, your legislative branch, has an 8% trust rating, okay? Television news, newspapers, I mean, why would you trust them? There's so many instances where like I critique it, people like Keith Woods critique it, Lucas Gage, everyone in the world who has 2 brain cells to rub together can tell you that media is propaganda. It is Zionist propaganda. If you look at the people in charge of the, who are the CEOs of these companies, if you look at the board of directors of these companies, if you look at Vanguard, BlackRock, who invest in these companies, they are all Zionist. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm not. It's pattern recognition that is anti-Zionist, is all I'm saying. I don't know what else to say about that. They are very clearly Zionist. They are pushing a Zionistic agenda. Ridiculous stuff. Again, big business, Zionist. And this is all very clearly objective reality. Like, you can quantitatively show that it is Zionist controlled. It's not something that is a subjective opinion whatsoever. And most of these aren't positions that are elected in a lot of cases. And even for the elected positions, the Zionists hold so much power throughout many institutions throughout the world, and throughout America in particular, that they can sway elections and tweak elections to favor them in a lot of different ways. So I'm not going to get into too much more about that. This video is going on a little bit longer than I was expecting. Anyways, this goes on to say most of the institutions rated this year are within 3 points of their all-time low confidence scores. And I just think that's because people are waking up, including 4 that are at or tied with their record low. These are the police. Okay, I didn't talk about the police, so I will go over that. The police are not beneficial to anyone right now in Western society. And for criminals, they feel like they're bullied by police. And for non-criminals, the criminal justice system and police, they feel like are not severe enough in terms of their punishments of criminals. And I've talked about this in another video where I go over how ridiculous the statement is, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, because you need to have severe enough consequences so that people do not continue to do things that go against the benefits of civilization. So if you have a criminal, serial criminal eye poker outer, the person's not going to stop unless you actually give them severe enough consequences. And so actually, an eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind is the opposite of the truth, because the serial eye poker is going to poke out everyone's eyes eventually, because there's no consequences for their actions, or there's not severe enough consequences for their actions. Again, this is ridiculously simple to understand, but essentially all of Western civilization has failed this test. They do not understand this whatsoever. It's ridiculous, but that's where we're at. Anyways, 4 lowest institutions: police, public schools, large tech companies, and big business. We're really already talked about all of those. Only 4 institutions have a confidence score significantly above their historical low: the military, small business, organized labor, and banks. I don't know why that's the case for all of those except for small business and organized labor. Like, military and banks should be much lower. Okay. Okay, recent trend for all of those are downwards. Let's see what else it says. Okay, historically depressed nature of today's ratings is evident in the average confidence score of 9 institutions that Gallup has routinely tracked since 1979. The average fell to a new low of 26% this year, while down just 1 point from 2022. It is 10 points lower than in 2020. Okay, so steep declines there in a couple years. Okay, some institutions are more polarizing than others. 7 of the institutions measured this year earn sharply higher confidence ratings from one major group than the other. Okay, so this is going to be interesting here because this shows the divide in America. Let me see if I feel like my audio is a little bit high. Oh yeah, it is a little bit high. Oopsies. Hold on. All right, that's fixed. There we go. All right. I think I can fix the audio in post-production too. There's a way of adjusting it so I'm not constantly clipping, but I'll check that. Anyways, going back to this, the party gap. Widest partisan differences are seen for the presidency, 39 points in public schools, about which Democrats are much more positive than Republicans. Okay, so for the presidency, that's going to depend on who is president at the time. And at the time of this polling, it was current president Joe Biden. And public schools, though, that's the concerning one, which is the public schools don't change on a yearly basis based on who's elected. Okay, so the fact that Republicans have essentially completely lost confidence in schooling should be concerning. So there's a 34-point difference. That means, I wonder what the exact number is for Republicans, but the difference is 34 points. So I think it would have to be below 50%, I'd imagine. But anyways, Republicans have significantly more confidence in Democrats when it comes to the Supreme Court. Okay, so that comes down to recent rulings on things like abortion, the church or organized religion, 24 points, and the police, 20 points. I think that's going to go down even for Republicans. So there's going to be less of a gap in upcoming years because Republicans are starting to realize that the police in America are there to control the populace from self-governance, from, I now sound like a libertarian. They're trying to stop people from stopping the plans of the oligarchy. The police are there as the enforcement arm of the oligarchy. That's what they're there for. They're enforcing the rules that the people may not want. As you can see here, they don't like the criminal justice system. And so they're not enforcing the rules that the average person wants. They're enforcing the rules that the oligarchy wants. And because of that, they're not going to be well liked by the Republicans, I think, in the future. Right now, there's so many Republicans that have family members and friends that are police officers. It's hard to see that. But I do think that's going to be on a downward trend. I would love to see the data there on if it is a downward trend for Republicans. But we'll come back to that some other time. Independents' confidence is more similar to Democrats and Republicans when it comes to religion and the police, while it falls halfway between the two groups on the other polarizing institutions. Okay. Partisan confidence ratings are similar to what they were last year for all institutions except the police, with Democrats' confidence increasing from 29% in 2022 to 40% today. That's weird. Longer term, partisans' confidence in the presidency changes depending on the party of the sitting president. Well, I guess it was because of the George Floyd stuff. That's why. Anyways, we're going to skip to the bottom line here. Americans' confidence in institutions in 2023 represents a continuation of the historic confidence deficit reported a year ago. None of the 15 institutions rated annually managed to repair their images, with many remaining at or near their all-time lows. While hardly encouraging, the good news is that none worsened significantly. So yeah, it's bad in America. As I've said before, I completely understand if you have roots in America, if you have a family member there, you can't pick up and leave. But if you're part of the laptop class and you can move and you don't really have strong roots in America, I would strongly encourage you to go somewhere. It doesn't have to be the Philippines. Sure, it's a Christian nation that is English speaking, but there are other nations you could go to if you speak Spanish. Go to places in Latin America, low cost of living. Not only is it difficult to live in America because of cost of living, but as I've said before, America is in terminal decline. And things are only going to get worse. And they're getting worse far faster than I expected. It's hard to say how many times faster, but what I can tell you is we're at least a decade ahead of my own predictions. And I thought my predictions were pretty pessimistic to begin with. And so I would encourage you to leave if you have the opportunity. So anyways, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. If you found this video to be helpful, please give us a like. It helps us in the algorithm. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and Rumble for more content. Tell a friend about our channel. We are going to, in the upcoming months, try to get our channel better publicized. I've had a lot of practice in this, so I feel like it's time to kind of go mainstream and get some attention now. And leave us a comment in the comment box below. Questions, concerns, critiques. I do read all of them, and I do respond when I think it's necessary. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.